Good afternoon, folks. I hope you're hungry for some juicy stories. Enjoy. I used to be in what in my college we call CEDAR, an investigation group created by students that want to produce scientific articles, in this case, psychology, and normally directed by a professor. I had just started college, didn't know how things worked, but thanks to a friend I was able to enter one of the most exclusive CEDARs of our faculty. They were developing at the time 5 articles, and I was assigned to the newest one, a simple case review. But this story is not about me or my project. This story is about Rebecca, the friend that helped me before. Like me, Rebecca was a psychology major, doing her final year of college, and she was one of the lead investigators in the Crown project of the CEDAR at the moment, a meta-analysis on conduct-to-all behavior therapy in schizophrenic patients around Latin American. This SHT was not easy. She had spent a year and a half working on it, and when I joined the group it was already in its final stages. Then the drama begun. Well, it had actually started midway project, when the first drafts were sent to the publications office. In my college, the publications office can be your best friend or your worst enemy as an investigator, and their suggestions are basically orders. Because the article dealt with a psychiatric pathology, they said it must have the support of our college's med school psychiatry department. The head of the department, who I will call Dr. Trash, put the condition that one of his residents had to be on the project. It was kind of rude to force them to include some random guy, but in the end she and her group accepted. Enter Julian, the human incarnation of laziness. In a team of 5 individuals, Rebecca, Julian and 3 other psychology students, Julian barely did any job, and whatever he made, had to be checked and corrected by one of the others. Sometimes Rebecca doubted he even knew what the article was about from some of his comments. Fast forward again to the finish line of the project. It was basically done and only needed the approval of Dr. Trash. And this is where things went to hell. For those who don't know, psychiatrists and psychologists aren't always in the best terms, and this hidden feud can sometimes cause troubles when we interact. In this case, as Rebecca learned from one of the good psychiatry residents, the problem was that Dr. Trash didn't believe psychology should exist and thought of us as glorified life coaches. You see where this is going? With the project already done, he refused to approve it unless those credited as main authors were himself, reasonable to a point. Department heads were always considered main investigators, our CEDAR director and Julian. The others could only put their name as investigation assistants on the acknowledgement section. This was a total slap in the face. Even when she tried to argue that she was the one that designed the project in the first place and that Julian did the minimum, the man called her a liar, said her basic idea had needed a lot of corrections, false, and that he knew Julian had written most of the paper as there was no way she could have done it. Remember, he saw us as life coaches. Julian, being the douchebag he had been all year, didn't correct him and let the others drown while he was praised. In her last peaceful attempt, Rebecca asked why they could not put the names of all as authors, and Dr. Trash said that a bunch of unknown student names would only wrest credibility to the thing and refused the proposal. Lastly, he said that they could accept his terms, or quit the project and live in total control of the article. You may be thinking this is impossible. This man is literally stealing the work from another person. Sadly, this is how investigation works sometimes, and is not uncommon that well-established investigators steal the work of unknown ones because in the he said you said, they are most likely to win. Even with evidence like mails and drafts they can get their way. Rebecca and her friends were devastated, but even the director of the CEDAR refused to give them his support. The important thing is that the article is published, not who takes the credit, was his reasoning. That's when Rebecca decided to go full suicide bomber. When she told her friends of her idea, warning them it would be the best if they leave the project before things escalated, they decided to stay and help her. The plan was to sabotage the article by modifying the statistical analysis they had made previously, basically the core of it all. The conclusion you got with the new results was the same as before, but anyone who read the thing thoroughly and checked the sources would see the data had been tampered, making it look that they had forged the results to their convenience. This was a tricky move, because they had to make the modifications in between the last revisions with enough subtlety that Dr. Trash would not notice it when he corrected other parts of the text. They were extremely lucky he never checked the statistical component, partly because that was the CEDAR's director responsibility and he had already given them the thumbs up. Finally, the article was completed, and the work was sent to the publications office. Then it was just waiting until it finally made boom. About a month after submitting the project, All the implicated were cited to a meeting with the publication's office, including Dr. Trash. The office had seen the altered results, and that meant they had to investigate the group for fraud. To the students and the resident, it could mean expulsion. For the director and Dr. Trash, they would be forbidden to publish again under the university's name, and in the worst-case scenario, they could be fired. And that is when Dr. Trash saw he had condemned himself. Because Rebecca and the others were just assistants, it meant that most of the responsibility was on himself and the other main authors. Blaming the students would give away the fact that they were way more involved in the process, admitting he had taken away the credit and that he had not checked the paper properly. In the end, he didn't have to decide how he wanted to be hanged, because the Cedar director spilled the beans in order to save his own neck. With the director's confession, Rebecca and the others could tell the truth and showed the publication's office the real results and told them about the sabotage. The aftermath of this is very bittersweet. 1. The office started an investigation on Dr. Trash articles and those he sponsored, finding he had done this way too many times. He was fired after the news spread around, and as far as we know, he has not done any more publishing in indexed literature because no serious magazine will accept his submissions. 2. Because of all the drama, Rebecca's article was deemed too compromised by personal interests and was not accepted for publishing. So that year's hard work went directly to the trash. 3. Cedar director had to surrender his job as an investigator, and the Cedar disbanded because there was no other professor available or willing to direct it. My little project died in here sadly. 4. Julian was put on probation by the medical faculty. 5. Rebecca and the others were banned from participating in other investigation projects or studies that were not related to their final thesis, but no more disciplinary actions were taken against them. When finishing up my degree in criminal justice, we had to learn about how the justice system works and how sometimes it doesn't. For about 2 weeks we studied a case from the early 90s of a woman that had killed her husband. Because the case is public record and a very interesting read, look up Betty Freiburg 1993. The setting was small town Iowa and the husband was the town drunk. Everyone in town knew him for a drunk, a brawler, a womanizer, and overall just a bad person. His wife was the stay-at-home mom, as she wasn't allowed to work or leave the house aside from get groceries. He would go home, beat her and violate her sexuality, and the cycle would go on and the whole town knew. Neighbors were a quarter-mile down the road but still would call the police when they heard noises. It was well documented, and because he was never a threat to their daughter, the police did nothing aside from take him to jail like a revolving door. Each time he got out he'd beat her up again. Their daughter was away at college but came home for Thanksgiving. While the father was at work, the daughter told the mother that her father had violated her sexuality and that she had even had an abortion because of it. This was the breaking point for the mother. She got her revenge 100-fold. When daughter went back to school after the holidays and husband came home, she killed him with his gun at the kitchen table. The table is important because it was a big farm table used for chopping up deer and other livestock. Doing the butchering was her job and she was good at it. If I could find the case report, it has pictures of the table and clear marks of chopping. She chopped up her husband and scattered his body over neighboring farms, fed what she could to her livestock, and cleaned up. Months went by and winter came and left. Police investigating his disappearance even questioned her while sitting at the table drinking coffee. She explained the marks on the table by explaining that she butchered her own meat and showed the officers her deep freeze. The investigation went on for months until finally a neighbor's dog brought back a body part. They identified it as belonging to him and she was arrested on the spot. She pleaded not guilty and refused any offers. It went to trial and 12 of her peers judged her not guilty due to extenuating circumstances. She confessed to the crime, explained why she did it and how, and that she had no real choice because no one was going to help her. The farm was hers and she refused to give it up as it had been her family's home. She was let go entirely for the murder charge. The next week we had Betty as a speaker to the class to discuss the case, and she was awesome. At the time she ironically sold dismemberment insurance for Aflac. Betty, if you ever read this, know you're seen as a figurehead for battered women and you pulled off the best revenge I have ever been able to study. What did you think? What would you have done differently? Share your opinions in the comments. And if you enjoyed the stories, slap that like and subscribe button for more of them, and don't forget to support the original writers with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.